What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing some Dark World test hands and combos. So I'm really excited to see you guys because this deck is an extremely powerful combo deck that can establish some really insane boards. You guys have been also requesting this one a lot recently to get test hands, and I'm really excited to show you guys some of the combos for this deck. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So this deck is a super fun deck to play that can just keep comboing and comboing and comboing. And that's something really important as you play Dark World that you have to keep in mind as you're playing this deck, is to not combo too far while you're playing this deck. But you guys know it's dad rule number one that you've got to pile shuffle the deck or you run the risk of bricking. If you guys would like to check out the deck profile, as always for this deck, it is down in the description down below. But this deck is really cool as well because you can basically pick up 3 of the structure deck and put some cards in the extra deck that you might already have to make a really powerful deck. So now that we got the deck pile shuffle, we're going to give the deck a quick little shuffle and see what we can do for our first test hand. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can do. So we're going to go ahead and draw. I'm going to draw into a copy of Grapha right off the bat. A copy of Rainbow. Hopefully we get a danger in our hand. Genta's really good. Silva, and a copy of Ascension. This is really, really good for an opening hand. We don't have any dangers, but that's totally fine because we do have the Genta in our opening hand, which is one of the key combos of the deck, is to be able to get to a copy of Genta. So let's go ahead and use our copy of Genta in the hand to be able to discard to the graveyard to immediately get our copy of Gates of the Dark World, which is an extremely powerful card to get to. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and activate that copy of Gates in our hand. And once you do, you have some really easy plays that you can actually pull off with this deck. So let's go ahead and activate the effect of Gates to be able to banish our copy of Genta. And then we're going to go ahead and discard our copy of Silva to be able to draw a card. So once we draw that card, it's actually going to be a Chupacabra, which is really good to be able to draw into. And our copy of Silva will actually bring itself back to the field because it brings itself back from the graveyard when it's discarded. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and activate the effect of our Chupacabra. And we're going to go 1 through 4 and roll the dice. If we do hit the copy of Chupacabra, I'll probably roll again. But usually you won't hit the copy of Chupacabra because it is a 1 in 4 chance. So we're going to get a 6. We're going to roll again. We're going to get a 6 again. And we're going to get a 2 this time. So we're actually going to discard exactly what I wanted to, which is the copy of Rainbow. At this point, we're going to special summon out our copy of Chupacabra. And once we do summon out that copy of Chupacabra, we're going to get to draw a card. Then the copy of the Rainbow in the graveyard will go off and let us add a level 5 or higher Dark World monster from deck to hand, which is going to be pretty helpful to be able to add a card from deck to hand. But we already do have a Grapha in the hand, which is a little bit of a downside, but it's totally fine because we can use it for more plays later. So let's go ahead and grab that copy of Grapha in the hand, and then we're going to shuffle up the deck. So now that we shuffled up the deck, let's see what we can do. We do have another copy of Gates, which is pretty good. So at this point, I'm probably just going to go ahead and fusion summon with this particular hand with the copy of Ascension, which is just such a powerful card. So let's go ahead and fusion summon with the copy of Ascension so that we can basically go in for some more plays. So let's go ahead and fusion the Grapha, because this card has the ability that during the main phase, you can fusion summon a Fiend fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing the materials mentioned on it from your field or grave. Or if you're fusion summoning a Dark World monster during your main phase, or you can also discard monsters as material, which is a pretty good effect. So let's actually hold on that effect and bounce back our copy of Silva to summon out our copy of Rainbow. So now at this point, let's go ahead and use the copy in our hand to be able to fusion summon and discard both of these cards, which is key about this deck to be able to summon out our copy of our Grapha fusion monster, which is just such a cool card. This card is so good because it helps you activate the effects of your Dark World cards and get their bonus effects, which is really neat. And then at this point, we're going to have the copy of Silva go off and bring itself back to the field since it was discarded to the graveyard, which is pretty cool. So at this point, we do have the copy of the Gates in the hand. So we're going to go ahead and activate a Gates for a Gates, and you have the copy of Genta that you can bring back. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and activate the copy of Grapha in our hand, or the copy of Gates on the field, to be able to banish the Grapha from our grave and send a Grapha to the graveyard to be able to draw a card, which is a copy of our Thunderbird, which is pretty good to be able to draw into. At this point, we can bring back the copy of our Jinta back from the graveyard, and you can stop here if you want to be able to stop pushing with your plays, or you can go in for more plays, which I would recommend. You can just go for an Appaloosa here because it will give you 4 negates, which is really cool because you have established a pretty good board depending on what your matchup is by putting the copy of the Silva, Chupacabra, Rainbow, and Jinta into it, which will give you a 4 material Appaloosa along with this card, which is a negate, kinda sorta, which is kinda cool. But let's go ahead and bounce the copy of Silva back to the hand and bring back Grapha. Now at this point, you could, at this point, stop and just let the opponent go after you make the copy of Appaloosa. But we're going to keep pushing. So, just to show you how far this deck can actually go. So, at this point, we're going to go ahead and make a copy of... Let's go ahead and make a copy of our number 60. You can make number 60 here, or you can even make a copy of Yugioh if you want to fix your hand, but my hand's okay with what I already have. So let's go ahead and make a copy of number 60 down here and detach both materials to the graveyard to be able to draw 2 and then discard a card. So we're going to go ahead and draw 2, which is a copy of Nessie and Rainbow that we're going to draw. And this is actually going to help us out a lot because now we can just reveal the copy of Thunderbird to get our 3rd level 8 on the field. So let's go ahead and roll the dice. And when we do, we're going to hit a 5. This is going to be 1 through 4. We're going to roll again, and we get a 3, which is our copy of Rainbow, which I believe is a once per turn. This has the ability that basically, if this card is discarded, yeah, except Rainbow. No, it's not a once per turn. You can actually use this effect again. That's insane that none of the Dark Worlds are basically once per turns. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add a level 5 or higher Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card. Then if this card was discarded to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Dark World monster from your deck or graveyard. So we're actually going to get another search, which is going to be pretty good. So we're going to special summon out our copy of Thunderbird, get a draw, and then get a search off the copy of Rainbow. That's just so insane that they're not once per turn. That's just so good. So let's go ahead and get our last copy of Grapha from our deck to our hand, which is just going to be really good to be able to grab. Shuffle up the deck. I did see all 3 of those Bigfoots stuck together. We will skip our next draw phase, but usually it just doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and shuffle that up, and then let's make a really powerful monster on the field. Let's go ahead and overlay all 3 of these monsters down here to be able to make our copy of our Coach King. Coach King is really, really good in this deck to be able to use, because at this point we can actually use the ability to detach all 3 materials to draw 3 cards, and for every monster we draw, we do 800 points of damage to the opponent. So let's go ahead and detach a material, draw a card, and that's 800 to the opponent. We're going to detach another one, and let's see if that's another 800. That is another 800, and detach one more to be able to go in again and draw our last card, which they only take 1600, which is not that big of a deal. We could have stopped at 2 and used Jinta if we wanted to, which would have been a better play, but that's okay if we want to basically just keep going, because we do have the copy of the gates for the gates that we can activate, and we do have an extra card in the hand to be able to use for our dangers. So let's go ahead and use our copy of Ogopogo in the hand. We haven't used Nessie either, so let's go ahead and roll, and we're going to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, our copy of Grapha, special summon out the copy of Ogopogo, and get a draw. We draw into a copy of Rainbow. That's pretty good. And let's go ahead and do one more and use our copy of Nessie. So we're going to go ahead and use Nessie. Hopefully not hit a 5. We hit a 6. And we're going to roll again. We hit a 4, which is a Rainbow, which I don't think we have another target in the deck to be able to actually add to hand. Let's check. Do we actually have another target? Because I think you can't add Rainbow from deck to hand. Because, yeah, you special summon this card from the graveyard, returning a Dark World back to your hand. If this card is discarded by effect, you had a level 5, except a copy of Rainbow. So you cannot add Rainbow, and we have the copy of Silva already in our hand, and we have used the copy of our Graphas. So we do not have another target in the deck for our copy. So we can go in for a copy of Appaloosa if you want to, but I'm actually looking for a really powerful card. So we're actually going to go again for a copy of Yugioh. So let's go ahead and go in for Yugioh using all 4 of these monsters on the field to be able to make our Sword Yugioh, which is just such a cool card to be able to make. You could OTK the opponent, which is really cool, if you use the copy of your 38 package, which is really neat for this deck. So we're going to use the copy of Sword Yugioh to be able to draw 4 and then discard a card. So we're going to shuffle up the deck and then see what we can actually draw. So we're going to draw into a copy of Jinta, a copy of Snow, a copy of Brow, and a copy of Brow. So that's pretty good to be able to draw into, and we haven't even used our other copy of Gates, which is pretty good. So let's go ahead and put back both of our copies of Jinta, because we just don't need those, and our copy of our Nessie on the bottom of the deck. And once we do, we're going to be able to use our copies of Brow. So at this point, we're going to use the last copy of Gates that we have to be able to banish a card from our graveyard, which I'm probably going to banish one of my 3 rainbows that are in the graveyard, because we have plenty of them in the grave. And we're going to discard a copy of Brow, because we do have a special summon, and we haven't even normal summoned this turn either, which is kind of neat. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to use the copy of Gates to be able to banish Rainbow, discard a copy of our Brow, and we're going to get a draw and then an extra draw because of the Brow. So we're going to draw into another copy of Brow, and we're going to draw into a copy of Asceticism, or Ascension, which is really good to be able to draw into, which is just super good to be able to use in this particular deck. And we do have the one in the graveyard as well, because basically if this card is in the graveyard, you can add this card back to your hand and then discard a Dark World monster that you have in your hand, and you can only use each effect this card once per turn. So we can't fusion summon again, but it's still pretty good to be able to do. So at this point we can special summon if we want to. So we're going to go ahead and just normal summon out the copy of Beige, bounce the copy of Beige back to hand, and then summon out from our graveyard our copy of Rainbow. Then we can use the effect of Sword Yugioh to be able to special summon out a monster to the field, and then bounce it again to be able to special summon out our copy of Grapha from the graveyard, which is pretty good just to get us an additional monster. Now let's actually use that Beige one more time to be able to bounce back to our hand our copy of Asceticism, and once we do, or Ascension, excuse me, and once we do, we can actually pick a bunch of different cards to be able to discard. We can discard our copy of our Brow to be able to get a draw, which let's just check out what the draw would be and see if it would be worth it. We're going to actually draw into a Mothman, so let's discard that copy of Brow to be able to continue our plays. So now at this point, we have a pretty good hand. So we do have the Mothman to be able to use. So let's go ahead and set one of these copies face down, because we actually don't want to hit that. And let's go ahead and set the other one face down, because we don't want to hit that either. So let's go ahead and roll the dice. We do have 1 through 5. Let's hope we don't roll a 5. And we're going to hit a 1, which is our copy of Snow, which is going to special summon out the Mothman, and then we're going to draw a card, which is our copy of Snow. Now Snow will go off to be able to add a Dark World from our deck to our hand, any Dark World card, which is pretty good to be able to just add any Dark World card you want from deck to hand, which is just really, really good. I really love that about this deck, to be able to just basically keep going, which is just so cool. I love that about this particular deck. So we're going to go ahead and use the effect of Snow to be able to add from our deck to our hand an additional Dark World card. At this point, it doesn't super matter what you add, because we have so many different plays that we've already pulled off with this deck, and you can basically just make an Appaloosa at this point to be able to just push for game later on. But at this point, let's go ahead and add from deck to hand, say, a Cerule. Let's go ahead and add Cerule from deck to hand, or we can even add, let's see, do we want to add our copy of Archive from deck to hand? I believe we do. This card is discarded graveyard by a card effect. You can add a Dark World card from deck to hand. So we can actually add our copy of Archive from deck to hand so we can get an additional draw. So let's add our copy of Archive, because it will actually get us more plays. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck. And once we do, we're going to go ahead and use the effect of Archive. Archive is super powerful in this particular deck. As you guys can see, this hand was completely random, and that's what's insane about this deck. We're going to go ahead and use the effect of Archive, that during your main phase, you can discard a Dark World monster, and if you do, Dark World monsters that you currently control gain attack equal to their level the discarded monster had in the hand times 100 until the end of the turn. And if a monster whose original type is Fiend is discarded from your hand by the effect of a Dark World card, which counts as a card or an opponent's card effect, even during the damage step, you can discard a card and then draw 2, which is going to help us even more in this particular deck. So we're going to get like a draw 3 with this particular deck, which is super cool. So we're going to use the effect to be able to discard a copy of Brow, which is going to put a 3 on this card, which is going to boost our monsters up by 300 additional attack points, which is pretty good. Brow will go off and let us draw a card. And then we can go ahead and use the second effect to be able to discard an additional card, which I'm going to go ahead and discard the copy of Beige to be able to draw 2. Now the copy of Beige will actually bring itself back to the field, and we're going to draw into a copy of Genta and Snow, which is such a cool effect to be able to draw into and go in for more plays. So we do have some really interesting plays that we can pull off at this point. We can make a copy of, say, an Abyss Dweller if we want to, which is kind of neat. We can make a copy of our Appaloosa, which is kind of cool. It's totally up to you at this point what you make. If you're going up against, say, Tier Limit, this would be a really good option to make with these two down here, or you can go into Appaloosa using more monsters. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of Appaloosa using the copy of the Yugioh, a copy of our Beige, a copy of Grapha, and a copy of our, let's go with Mothman. Let's go ahead and get rid of that Mothman on the field and use these on the field to be able to make that copy of Appaloosa, and that will be a 4 negate Appaloosa, which is really cool. So we've actually established essentially 5 negates on the field, and we can make another Grapha during the opponent's turn, which is really neat because we do have the copies of our Ascension set face down, which is really neat. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to pass over to the opponent. Now, once we pass over to the opponent, they can go in for more plays, but we do have the copy of Silva in the hand to be able to use with our copy of Grapha. Now, another cool card that I was actually searching for is their copy of Nico Main King. We can actually skip our opponent's entire turn, which is why I main this card and what I was actually looking for in this test hand. But if you have both of these, this card in the hand and this card on the field, you can actually skip your opponent's turn, which is really cool because this card will make your opponent's effect to discard a card, and then the Nico Main King will get discarded, making it your opponent's end phase. You also have the Appaloosa to chain if your opponent tries to stop you at any point, but that's really neat. But we can discard the copy of Silva, which will make our opponent return exactly 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of their deck, which is a pretty good effect. So let's say our opponent activates a card, we're going to discard the copy of Silva and make them return 2 cards off the copy of Grapha. Then we have 4 more cards in their hand, plus the one we negated, so they have 3 cards left in their hand to be able to use, and we have 4 negates on the Appaloosa. So at this point, they're going to pass back over to us. We're going to draw into a copy of Jackalope, which we can immediately activate, and let's say we negated 2 cards on the field. Let's go ahead and roll a dice for the Jackalope. So we're going to roll a 5, and we actually hit the Jackalope, which is going to get discarded, but it actually has a really good effect that if this card is discarded, then you can special summon 1 danger monster from your deck. So we're going to special summon out a Bigfoot just to get us some more board presence. At this point, you can flip your copy of your Ascension, and we can banish from the graveyard our pieces to be able to summon out our Dark World Dragon, which is really cool. So we're going to go ahead and banish from the graveyard our copy of Brow and Grapha to be able to make a second copy of Grapha on the field, which is really good. Now at this point, we do have more plays that we can go in for. We do have the gates and the copy of Archive, which is turned off now. But we're going to go ahead and use the effect of our gates to be able to banish a card from the graveyard, which we're going to go ahead and banish from the grave a copy of Snow and discard a copy of Snow from our hand to draw a card, and then the copy of Snow will go off. So we're going to get an additional search of a Dark World card, which we just have the copy of Cerule left. That is important to note as you're searching what you have left, and we don't have any more Dark Worlds in the deck. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle it up, and at this point, don't keep pushing with this particular hand. We do have the copy of the Archives that we are going to use to be able to discard a card. So we're going to go ahead and discard this. We're going to just push a little bit more to get 1 monster on the field. We're going to go ahead and use the effect of Archives to be able to draw 2 by discarding a card, which we do draw into a copy of our Bigfoot. Let's go ahead and use the effect of Bigfoot 1 through 6. We're going to go ahead and roll, and we're going to roll for a 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Discard this from our hand to be able to special summon the Bigfoot to our field and then draw a card, which is Zaphros the Elite. So at this point, we're going to just go in for game because you don't want to be able to use all 5 of the rest of the cards. Just in case you don't win at this point, you want to save a little bit of your field just to make sure that you don't get OTK'd on the next turn and your opponent just goes, hey, pass, you lose, that's it, you don't have any cards left in the deck. That's something that you really got to watch out for as you're playing this deck. You can also overlay on your side of the field the copies of Bigfoot into a copy of number 38 if you want to keep going and give you a spell negate, which is kind of cool. cool, but I feel like the double graph is totally fine. That's enough. So we can also use the effect of our copies of Archive if we want to give it a little bit of a boost. Discard the copy of Jinta, get a 400 point boost, which on top of the copy of Gates is going to be a 700 attack point boost, which will boost your copies of Graph up to 3,900 on the field, which is massive. So I think that's pretty much going to do it for this particular test hand. Let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck one more time and draw it out and see if we get a really good hand just to show you guys. Because as you guys can tell, this deck is super consistent in what it's trying to do. And it's really good. Like, this deck is super good. If you guys would like to check out the deck profile, as always, it is down in the description down below. But it's still a really awesome deck. I really love this particular deck. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next particular test hand. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck. We still have a pretty good board with this particular deck, and I really love this particular deck because there's just so many plays that you can pull off, because you already had game when you started the turn, and they already took 1,600 points of damage with the copy of Coach King. But let's go ahead and shuffle it up and just see what we draw. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle it up and see what we can do. So we're going to shuffle up the deck and draw 5 cards. There's that Nico Main King on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and shuffle it up again and see what we can pull off for this particular hand. So we're going to draw into 5. We're going to draw into a copy of Grapha, a copy of Silva, a copy of Snow. Let's hopefully draw our danger. Card Destruction, and a copy of Snow. Let's go ahead and play this one out. This is really big. So we're going to go ahead and activate the copy of Card Destruction right off the bat, because that is something I wanted to show you guys as we were playing this deck, that sometimes you will draw into hands where you won't have anything to discard. And that's why cards like Card Destruction is really big in this deck. Yes, it does get rid of your opponent's hand, but if we didn't have it, we wouldn't have any plays. So that does happen sometimes, and why I really love the dangers in the deck, because sometimes with Pure, sometimes you don't have anything to discard, which is a little bit of a downside. So let's go ahead and use the copy of Card Destruction to be able to draw an additional 4 cards from the top of the deck, and we're going to get a bunch of different chains, and we have a better hand now. We're actually going to get a chain 1, 2, 3, special summon out the copy of the Silva, and Snow is going to go off, giving us a double search. So we're actually going to search out a copy of Jinta, and we're going to search out a copy of our Rainbow. Rainbow is going to give us another search, which is really good. And we can actually bounce the copy of Silva back to hand, which is going to be really good to be able to do, to be able to just get that copy of Silva back to hand and get that copy of Grapha on the field, which doesn't start a chain, which is cool. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and activate the copy of Archive, and then we're going to use the effect of our Danger Bigfoot. Roll the dice. Actually, before we do, we're going to discard that copy of Jinta. I always forget to use Jinta's effect first, but let's go ahead and use the copy of Jinta to get our copy of Gates on the field. Shuffle up the deck really quick, and then we're going to go ahead and use Bigfoot. Now, once we use the Bigfoot, you can use Archives, which is really cool. So let's go ahead and shuffle it up, and then once we shuffle it up, we're going to use Bigfoot, roll the dice, and we're going to hit a 3, which unfortunately is the Bigfoot. We could pop a card on the field, but if they don't have a card on the field, then it just fizzles. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and use the effect of our Gates to be able to banish our copy of Jinta from the graveyard, and then we're going to discard a Dark World from our hand, which I'm probably going to discard the copy of Rainbow. Yeah, let's discard Rainbow. Rainbow is pretty good here, and we're going to go ahead and draw a card. The copy of Archives will go off, and we'll discard a card from our hand to draw 2. Before we do, actually, we have the effect of our Rainbow to be able to go off. So we're going to go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, and we're going to add a copy of Grapha to hand. We're going to shuffle up the deck. That's something that you got to do as you keep up with this deck. It is sometimes a little bit hard to keep up with all the different effects that are running in this deck, but it's still really cool. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and use the effect of the Archives to be able to discard a card from our hand, which is going to be the copy of our Brow, to be able to draw 2, and then the copy of Brow will give us an additional draw, which we drew into the Fusion spell. That's really good to be able to draw into. Okay, so now we have a really insane hand, because we do have another copy of our Gates, so we can actually Gates for Gates, which is going to help us out. So let's go ahead and Gates for Gates, and we're going to banish a Dark World Snow from the graveyard, which is right there. And we're going to go ahead and discard a monster from our hand, which I'm actually going to discard Silva, because Silva will bring itself back, and draw a card, which is a Jackalope. That's really good to be able to draw on a Jackalope. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and go in for another play because we do have the copy of Zaphros in the hand. I'm going to show you a really neat thing about Zaphros. So we're going to go ahead and use the copy of our Ascension, which you can use Ascension now to be able to use a Dark monster and a Dark World monster to be able to go in for our boss monster. Yes, we just fusion summon with a Blackwing. So we're going to go ahead and summon out our copy of our Grapha, and the copy of Grapha in the Grave can go off if you do want to. But at this point, we're actually going to use our copy of Zaphros to be able to special summon itself back, take that 400 damage, bounce Gates, and then reactivate Gates, which is really cool about this deck. So that copy of our Ascension should be in the graveyard, but that's totally fine. We then have Gates on the field that we can use to be able to banish a Dark World from the grave, which is going to be a Snow because it doesn't count as the same one that was already on the field. Banish the copy of Snow, discard the Beige, which will bring itself back, and then draw a card. It's a pretty good hand right off the bat. So at this point, you can go in if you want to for a copy of another monster, like a copy of Appaloosa, and not keep pushing with this particular hand. You do have a double bounce. Let's actually go for Coach King, because we can actually do a double bounce, which is kind of cool. So let's go ahead and bounce these two on the field back to the hand, summon out these two to our side of the field, and then immediately overlay all three into a copy of Coach King. I usually like to make Coach King going first, because we can just go in for this play where we discard or detach, draw a card, 800, detach, draw a card, 800, detach, draw a card, 800. That's pretty cool to be able to just do that. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and use more of our copies in our hand of our dangers. We're going to go ahead and use the copy of Jackalope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We do have 8 in the hand. So we're just going to go ahead and normal summon out our monster for the turn, just to be able to basically get a card out of the hand because we haven't normal summoned to the field this turn. So let's go ahead and normal summon out our copy of our Beige to the field. And let's go ahead and roll for our copies of our card. So we're going to go ahead and roll, and we're going to roll into a 3, which is going to be the copy of Silva. We're going to special summon out that Silva, discard this card to the graveyard. Actually, we don't want to normal summon out that card, because if we do normal summon out that card, we can't special summon it out to the field. Let's go ahead and roll again. Let's shuffle it up really quick and say right there, we have 8 cards in the hand. So we're actually going to roll 2 dice to be able to go into. Our opponent usually would randomly pick 1, but we'll just go ahead and randomly pick 1 because we usually roll for it, but that's going to make it so 1 can't be picked. So we're going to go ahead and pick this one right here, and it's actually the copy of Brow. So we're going to go ahead and discard Brow, special summon out the copy of Jackalope. At this point, we're just trying to make an Appaloosa. We're going to draw a card. We do draw into a Genta, which is really good. Let's go ahead and keep going, because we can keep going with this hand. That's what's insane. So at this point, we do have the copy of the Jackalope in the field. All we really need at this point is another monster on the field, which we haven't normal summoned because we actually took back that normal summon because we couldn't special summon the Jackalope. But at this point, we can keep going. We will get the additional draw off the Brow because it was discarded, so we get the copy of Nessie. And then let's go ahead and activate the Nessie in our hand to be able to randomly pick a card again, which we're just going to shuffle up our hand and hopefully not hit a Nessie, which we're going to hit a copy of this card right here, and it's a copy of Silva, which we're going to use no effect of Silva because we want that draw. Special summon out a copy of Nessie from our hand. No effect of Silva, which is a little bit of a shame, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and draw a card, which is our Dark World Ascension. And let's go ahead and clean up this board a little bit and make our copy of our Yugioh, just to be able to get some more cards into our hand. So we're going to go ahead and use the copy of Yugioh to be able to draw 4 from the top of the deck. And then once we do, and we draw those 4, we're going to go ahead and hit a copy of Cerule, our Danger Mothman, and a Chupacabra. We don't need the copy of Bigfoot in the hand because we've already used Bigfoot this turn, so we're going to go ahead and put both of those back and the copy of Nessie back to be able to just go in for more plays. Let's go ahead and use the copy of Genta here to be able to grab our copy of Gates from the deck because we want one more copy of Gates in the deck, and we're going to go ahead and shuffle it up. And then once we do, we can actually go Gates for Gates because we're going to start filling up the field again. Now let's go ahead and use the effect of our Dark World Gates. So we're going to go ahead and use the effect to be able to banish a Brow from the grave. And once we do banish that copy of Brow from the grave, we're going to go ahead and discard a copy of Brow from our hand to get a double draw off of Gates. So we're going to draw 2 off the top, which is a Nico Main King and our copy of our Rainbow. That's perfect, exactly what we needed. We're going to use the copy of Yugioh just to be able to empty our hand a little bit, and we're going to special out the copy of Rainbow to the field. Now let's go ahead and use our copy of our Chupacabra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, let's play it a little safe. Let's actually play it a little safe. Let's go ahead and use in the graveyard our copy of our Ascension to be able to put back a card into the deck, or discard a card, excuse me, which we're going to discard the copy of Beige to be able to special summon it out to the field. And then at this point, we're going to go ahead and use the effect of Mothman. And we're going to hope we don't hit the Nico Main King. And we're actually going to hit this card right here, which is the Mothman. We did use the Chupacabra, special summon it out to the field. And then we're going to draw a card, which is pretty good to be able to just draw an additional card. So we're going to draw into another Mothman. That's pretty good. So let's go ahead and let's not use the Mothman. I'm playing it a little bit safe. So let's not use the Mothman. This is what I'm talking about playing it safe. We're going to link all these away. Make a copy of Appaloosa, and once you do make that copy of Appaloosa, we're basically just going to set 2, maybe 1 of these on the field, and then pass over to the opponent. Now, with that whole hand, we have a 4-material Appaloosa on the field, and we do have the copy of the Graph on the field, so we're going to let the opponent go, and when they go over to their turn, they're going to activate their very first card. We're going to discard that Nico Main King, skip their turn, which is pretty cool, make it the end phase, and then you have the copy of Appaloosa to do all the negates, and then at that point, you can basically just go into the next turn and basically win, because you're going to draw into a copy of Tsuchinoko. We're going to use the effect of Mothman in the hand, roll a dice, and we're going to hit a 1, which is the Cerule, give this to the opponent, special summon out the Mothman, and draw a card. And we're going to go ahead and use the copy of Archives, discard our copy of Snow to draw 2. And once we do, we're going to draw 2, and then our copy of Snow is going to go off and give us an additional search of the Grapha in the hand so we can pop that Cerule on the field. We're going to use the gates on the field to be able to banish that copy of Snow, discard from our hand the copy of Grapha, pop that copy of Cerule on the field, and then we're going to get to draw a card, which is going to be pretty good to be able to draw into a copy of Rainbow. Now at this point, we can go in for more plays. Let's go ahead and use the effect of our Thunderbird or the Chupacabra. Let's use Chupacabra in the hand. We're going to go ahead and use Chupacabra in the hand to be able to go in for more plays. So we have 6 in the hand. We're going to go ahead and roll. And we're going to get 2, which is going to be the Tsuchinoko, which will special summon itself, and the copy of Chupacabra, which will let us draw another card, which is a copy of Genta. That's pretty good to be able to draw into that copy of Genta. Then let's go ahead and see what we want to do. So at this point, we can go in for more link plays. If we want to go in for more link plays, you can go in for a copy of your, let's see. You can go in for a copy of Underworld Goddess if you want to, if your opponent has a monster on the field, which usually they probably won't, but it is an option for you guys if you want to. But let's go ahead and special summon out the Genta, or normal summon out the Genta, bounce it back to our hand, and then special summon out a monster from our graveyard, which will be the copy of Rainbow. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and make a Link 2 copy of our IP Masquerena, or you can even make a copy of your Mudracker, which is pretty cool. And then you can go ahead and discard a Fiend from your hand to be able to target a Fiend in the graveyard and special summon it, which we're going to bring back a copy of our Grapha or one of our other really powerful monsters. We just can't bring back the one that we discarded because you got to target first. Bring back that copy of Grapha, and then we're going to use the copy of our Ascension in the graveyard to be able to flip it up. And we're going to go ahead and fuse the copy of our Chupacabra. And we're going to banish from our graveyard a copy of Grapha to be able to bring out a second copy of our Grapha Fusion monster. We are locked into Fiend monsters because of the Mudracker, but that's totally fine because at this point we're just going to OTK the opponent with all of these monsters. So I think that's going to do it for this test hand, guys. As you guys can see, this test hand, or this deck is just really insane. It's super fun to be able to play. If there was any mistakes in it, guys, I do apologize because this deck is just absolutely insane with all the different plays that you can pull off. You pretty much just OTK the opponent by just continuing to combo, but that's really important. Something that you want to watch out for as you're playing this deck is look, I only have 3 cards left in my deck, so you want to be very careful depending on what your matchup is, depending on if you can go ahead and OTK, because usually you can just OTK the opponent at this point, but it's super powerful. You don't want to deck yourself out, which I have done before with this deck, which is a big shame, but it was just a really fun deck. Like, this deck is just super fun because you can establish this really insane board. So I think that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you guys would like to check out the deck profile, as always, it is down in the description down below. This deck is just really fun to be able to play because it's just insane, all the different combos that you can pull off. So anyways, guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.